Sello.
Thank you, Chair, and co-commissioners of the Commission. Chair, I appear today with my learned friend, Advocate Mkhwanazi. My name for the record is Mashape Sello, and our job today is to present the evidence of General Mkhwanazi. Chair, with those introductory remarks, and I do take note of the fact that the Chair has already informed us of housekeeping issues. I think General Mkhwanazi is ready to commence with his testimony, and for that purpose, may I request that he be duly sworn in.
General, please state your full names for the record.
My name is Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
Do you swear that the evidence you are going to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair. General Mkhwanazi, next to you, you should have two files, a small file and a big arch lever file. If you look at the spine of the files, the one is written file 1, the other is written file 2. File 1 contains a single document, which is a statement, and file 2 contains the annexures to the statement. Do you have those before you?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Before we start, for the record, General, do you confirm that you have prepared and intend to submit a statement to this commission in respect of the issues that this commission is inquiring into?
That is correct. I did prepare a statement.
I would like to refer you then to file 1, the small file, and you consider that document, and in particular, you go to the last page of that document, which should be page 100. At the bottom of that page is a signature above your name, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, is dated the 16th of September, 2025. Would you confirm whether or not that is your signature above that name?
Yes, Commissioner, I can confirm it is my signature.
Do you confirm, therefore, for purposes of this hearing, that the document contained in file 1 does constitute your statement to the Commission?
That is correct, Commissioner. It is my statement.
Do you stand today by the correctness of the averments made in that statement?
That is correct, Commissioner. I confirm.
File 2, if you have a quick glance at it, as I said, are the annexures. These are the annexures to your statement as referred to in your statement.
That is correct.
Chair, the witness has confirmed his statement and the annexures in support thereof. We are ready to tender the statement into evidence. If I may just clarify, the sequencing, are we going to call them volumes? Are we going to call them files? I've got 2 sets here. For record purpose, would it be volumes 1 and 2 of the Commission?
It doesn't really matter. You can call them file 1 and file 2, whatever you prefer. Okay. Or for them, yeah, you may use the general's initials and Mkhwanazi. But the annexures themselves, let's see what do they MK. They use the annexures use MK. Let's call them MK1 and
MK1. Yes.
2. But you use numbers even for the annexures. Maybe
may I propose we name them MK1?
MK.
It constitutes of 2 files,
Yeah.
file 1 and file 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
such a small matter, but cracking our heads.
No. It might not seem to matter at the moment, but by the time the seventh witness appears,
Yes.
then we have sort of lost track.
Thank you.
General Mkhwanazi, I know you'll be touching on these issues later on, but I suppose at the start of this hearing to perhaps address some protocol issues. Your position within the South African Police Services is that of Lieutenant General, correct?
That is correct.
Would it be appropriate to refer to you as General Mkhwanazi, or are we required to use your full title of Lieutenant General?
In terms of the police regulation, as we address, we call it general. So you are welcome to address me as general.
Thank you, General. Then if I may invite you to page 5 of file 1, which is page 5 for your statement. Could you very briefly introduce yourself to the Commission and for the record, indicating when you joined the police force and your progression through the force from when you joined till date?
Commissioner, I did not join. I joined the force, you're correct. That was in 1993, which then translated into the service in 1995, when democracy started in our country. I joined the service in 1993, June, when I underwent training at the police college in Pretoria. And from there, I was deployed to go and work in Potchefstroom. At the time, the unit was called Internal Stability Unit. In 1993, when December, after my training, which the name then later changed into Public Order Policing Unit. And from Public Order Police Unit, Potchefstroom, I moved to Durban, Public Order Policing Unit. That is when I joined the Special Task Force from Durban. I attended a training in the Special Task Force in 1998. And from there, I worked at the unit, the Special Task Force Durban, until 2001. In 2001, I moved to Pretoria, where I assumed command of the Pretoria unit, Special Task Force. And from there, I became the deputy head of the task force, and subsequent to that, promoted to the overall command of the Special Task Force in 2005. And from there, I moved to become a head of specialized operations that includes the Air Wing, the Special Task Force, the NIU, TRT, and other units that are tactical in the South African Police Service. And from there, I became the acting National Commissioner. From the position of acting National Commissioner, which was a couple of months, just less than a year, I spent the whole year after that enjoying time sitting at home without the post. And subsequent to that, I was then deployed to be the head of facility management in the South African Police Service. And from there, I became the head of the training section of the police, which is a division that is referred to as Human Resource Development. And from Human Resource Development, I was deployed in KwaZulu-Natal to go and act in the period 2018 until 2019. And from there, I moved back to the head office under the Division Operational Response Service, where I worked until 2021. And that is when, in April, I assumed my responsibility of being the Provincial Commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal. So that is the position I'm currently occupying.
May I refer you to file 2? And in particular, I'd like to draw your attention I'd like to draw your attention to Annex MP3 that appears in file 2 from page 1 through, oh, apologies. I'll start again. I do apologize. Apparently my mic was off, so I wouldn't have been on record. So, General, I refer you to the file 2, and in particular to page 135. It's a document marked Annexure MK3, and that is your curriculum vitae. Insofar as your educational background is concerned with reference to that document, could you please highlight some aspects thereof?
Thank you, Commissioner. According to the curriculum vitae and the information that I know is that I finished my matric at the high school, Siyahlomula High School in Pietermaritzburg in the township of Ashdown. And from there, I conducted my tertiary studies at the Technical South Africa back then. That's when I obtained my national diploma in policing. And subsequent to that, I then obtained my bachelor degrees in policing at the Tshwane University of Technology. And that is my tertiary studies, commissioners. Other than that, I attended quite a lot of other training programs, which would include executive development program that was held at Wits University. And there's other courses that I attended, which will include the executive development program from the African Institute for Mentoring and many other training programs within the South African Police Service, including other training abroad, such as in the United States of America and the U.S. Department of Justice Federal Bureau, where I attended training programs on a supervisor's role in counter-terrorism investigations, as well as Louisiana State University, where I attended a crisis response training. There's training programs that I attended at International Paul Tingley Management Services, which was a development program for high-performance managers, amongst others. As I said, Commissioner, there are many other developments that I had within the South African Police Service. I've counted some of them from Task Force, Public Order Police, and the likes.
Thank you for that, General. And thank you for introducing yourself to members of the Commission. Now to turn to the business of the day. Please refer to file 1 now, to your statement. And I would like us to pick up this conversation from your paragraph 6. In paragraph 6, as I understand it, you seem to qualify the testimony you are about to give, and I would like you to explain to the commissioners the extent of that qualification and the explanation of the nature of the testimony and evidence that will be tendered in this commission.
Thank you, Commissioner. It is important for the Commissioner and the general public at this juncture to understand the main function of the South African Police Service, which is primary to investigate a crime that has been committed. So in the course of our investigation and analysis, as well as the collection of evidence that we get, the information and evidence that we get, the patterns are established to which further the more detailed investigations may be warranted. To the extent that these patterns are established, the potential threat to the independence and the proper functioning of the justice system, these are flagged and pursued where required. In the result, a number of allegations I advanced during that press briefing are premised on and intended to draw the attention to establish and to the developed pattern which enjoined us all to urgently act as law enforcement as well as the country to effectively respond to the threats that have been established during the course of the investigation.
And as you were not here, the evidence leader pointed out that we are here today because of the press statement and the press briefing, the press statement you delivered on the 6th of July that was published to the country at wide. You deal with this aspect from your paragraph 7. If you could have regard there too. And to this end, You have an annexure there referred to as MK2, and for reference, that would appear at page 103 of file 2. And at 104, my apologies, 103, yes. The actual document starts at 104. Could you give the Commission a brief background to how that document and subsequent briefing came about?
Commissioner, on the 6th of July, when I made this address before the South Africans, it was because I wanted to inform the public about the level of challenges that we're experiencing as a South African Police Service in relation to the work we do as the police, which involve criminality and the political interference on the work that we do as the police, which will also include corruption within the value chain of the justice system, which we are part of as law enforcement. That's why the presentation that is attached here will be used as a reference, which is marked. I'm not going to refer to all of them, but by and large, commissioners, that was to brief the nation to understand what challenges are we facing as a South African Police Service.
Are you the sole author of the content of that document, or do you have other people or persons that participate in the creation of that document and the information contained therein?
I must indicate, Commissioner, that this briefing which I made on the 6th of July, it is a product of the collective and collaborative efforts of various units within the South African Police Service, the majority of men and women in blue in this service who were responsible for, together with myself, in compiling this document. It is therefore a reflection of the common concerns that we share as colleagues in different ranks within the service, which made us to have a common desire for these problems to be resolved, and in order to enable these members of the service to be able to serve with honor and dignity.
You make what I consider to be an important point at paragraph 11 that I think you should share with the Commission, which would seem to speak to a risk in the absence of positive action. What is that risk? What is the fear and what is the risk?
Commissioner, on this paragraph level, it has been my aim that I want to demonstrate that the criminal justice system has been subject to a continuous threat, as well as sabotage, which has been with us over an extended period, to a point where we believe it is at real risk of a total collapse if nothing is done. Therefore, an urgent and effective interventions are required in order to avert this outcome. And I believe this commission will stand to play a very important role in order to help us to prevent this total collapse of the justice system in our country.
Your statement in that part concludes with a personal message. Would you like to deliver it at paragraph 12?
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner. As we had appeared before the South Africans on the 6th of July, I must first thank the media in South Africa for affording us an opportunity to be able to share our challenges with the public, which then, as a result, it helped the state president to establish this commission following that press briefing, which we also appreciate, as this commission is going to help us to deal with the challenges that we are facing as we execute our duties. And lastly, I want to thank the general public for having received our message very well. And I'm sure what we're going to talk about is not necessarily everything that the public are experiencing out there in terms of the experience they have as they interact with the justice system, but it is mainly to address those that we were speaking about on the 6th of July.
Thank you. I would like to draw attention then to paragraphs 13 and 14, which set out the scope of your statement and the testimony you are about to give. Can you briefly speak to that scope of your evidence?
Commissioner, the main address that we put on this statement will focus in the main on what has been much talked about, which is the KwaZulu-Natal political killings testing. We will want to address that first. And secondly, we will want to address the criminality, the political interference, as well as the corruption within the criminal justice system. It shall become evident that significant overlaps and intersection between the two broad topics, and a distinction between the two may not always be possible to draw. I will, however, address the issue of KwaZulu-Natal political killings testing first, and separately before I delve into matters of the political interference, the corruption and criminality that we experience within our criminal justice system.
In the context then of the focus of your statement, the next chapter you deal with substructural overview and organogram. You set out a background to the establishment of the SAPS, the legislative framework that governs the SAPS. And I would like us to work through that part of your statement in brief. We don't have to read everything. So you start at paragraph 20 with the establishment of SAPS. Any aspect you'd like to highlight in that regard? Yeah, well, Commissioner, in the main, as the general public will know, that Section 199 of the Constitution establishes all the security agencies that we have in the country, which include the South African Police Service, the Defence Force, as well as the intelligence. And all these services are structured and regulated in terms of national legislations, which in case of the South African Police Service, it will be the South African Police Service Act. And the SAPS members must always act in accordance with the Constitution and the law. And I must make sure that whatever they do does not advance the political interest of one party over the other. And ours is to make sure that we apply the fairness that the Constitution is directing us to do, to treat everyone equal before the law. And in any partisan manner or any interest that is shown by each member to the political party is prohibited by the law. In the next few pages, you summarize the SAPS mandate in terms of the Constitution, in terms of the Act, and you make reference to the regulations. Now, insofar as the Constitution is concerned, what would you like to highlight for purposes of the Commission, insofar as the role players, as determined by Section 206 are concerned, the Minister, the National Commissioner, and the Provincial Commissioner? Commissioner, in the main, will draw attention to Section 205 of the Constitution, which outlines what are the primary responsibility of the South African Police Service, which will include the prevention, combating, investigation of crime, protection of the property and the citizen of this republic or the inhabitants of the republic, which also includes the maintenance of public order and to uphold the law as the South African Police Service. That is what the Constitution tells us to do. But the same Constitution, under different sections, Section 206 of the Constitution outlines the responsibility of the Minister of Police, which is that of a policy development. The Constitution says the Minister will develop the policy
in consultation with the provincial executive or provincial government. And their needs in different provinces must be taken into account when the minister develops this policy. And the same constitution gives powers to each province to monitor police conduct and the police performance. And that is done through the executive, as each province has an assigned individual which is responsible for overseeing the work that the police are doing. In the same constitution, Commissioner, other than 206, that talks about the executive authorities at national level as well as provincial level in terms of the ministers and MECs. In some provinces, we have premiers that are overseeing that role, those that do not have MECs. But the Constitution under Section 207, it speaks about the appointment of a man or a woman to be the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, who's appointed by the President of the Republic. And this individual is given the responsibility to exercise control and to manage the South African Police Service. And it does that in accordance with the national policy that will have been developed by the minister, who is a cabinet member, and also under the direction of the very same cabinet member. The Section 207 further speaks about the appointment of provincial commissioners. And the provincial commissioners are appointed by the national commissioner. And the national commissioner does that in consultation with the executive in the province. And the responsibility of the provincial commissioners are outlined in the same constitution, which says that the provincial commissioners are responsible for policing in their respective provinces as prescribed by the legislation and are subject to powers of the national commissioner, the powers and control of the national commissioner of the South African Police Service. And in the Constitution, you will find, together with the act that is referred to in the Constitution, which I spoke about earlier, that there are different acts that are developed. And one of the acts that is critical in the Constitution is the National Intelligence Act, the National Strategic Intelligence Act, which is applicable to the South African Police Service as a captured, which regulates the functioning of our crime intelligence within the South African Police Service. I sum, the Constitution establishes a single police service, and this concept creates a unified and standardized police service across the Republic under the leadership of the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service.
Thank you. You then tend to deal with the Act and the provisions of the Act. Your statement does speak to what the Act regulates and provides for. In this context, I would like you to work us through the powers and the functions of the provincial commissioner.
The Police Act, which is developed by government under Section 12 of the SAPS Act, that is where the powers of the provincial commissioner are written, which reads that the provincial commissioner shall have command of and control over the service in his or her jurisdiction in the province, and may exercise such powers and shall perform the duties and function necessary to give effect to the provision of the Constitution. The provincial commissioner further is authorized to distribute the strength of service amongst different areas in the province, dividing it into manageable areas, which will include the stations, different areas, and create offices and units within the province in order to be able to effectively perform or discharge the duties that outlined in the Constitution.
Now, at paragraph 34 of your statement, you once again reference the intelligence division of SAPS. You indicated that it is regulated in terms of the intelligence, in terms of the National Strategic Intelligence Act. with reference to your paragraph 34, could you explain to the Commission how that division, the intelligence division, fits in within the SAPS structure?
The division crime intelligence that exists in the South African Police Service as established in terms of the Act, it's a division that reports via a Deputy National Commissioner to the National Commissioner within the South African Police Service, with primary job is to gather, evaluate, coordinate the intelligence in order to support the objectives of the SAPS across the country as we perform our duties.
You follow that part of your statement with an overall summary of the key SAPS role players, and that is from your page 16, paragraph 41 of your statement, where you highlight, for purposes at least of your testimony, who are the key role players in this policing environment. Please highlight those.
The key role players that are applicable in terms of the work that we do as we discharge our duties as South African Police Service will include the Minister of Police, whose executive authority are responsible for policy development and directing the works that the National Commissioner does, the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, the Provincial Commissioner of the South African Police Service, as well as the executive in the province, which are the members of the executive committees, which are commonly referred to as MECs. As I said, Commissioner, in some provinces too that we know of, that they are premiers that are taking direct responsibility over that role.
You have at your paragraph 48 at page 18 a diagram headed placement of top management. I'm going to request that it be put up, and perhaps you could walk us through that diagram for us to understand that top management, the top management organogram. So if you could just speak to that organogram and guide us quickly through it.
Commissioners, the SAPS has got two designations in terms of the levels. We have those that are established in terms of the Constitution, which I spoke about earlier. That would be the National Commissioner, the Provincial Commissioners. As you see them on the top right corner, those 9 provinces are Provincial Commissioners. And on the extreme left, the badge that is standing out there with yellow and red and black, that is a directorate for priority crime investigation, which is commonly referred to as the Hawks, established in terms of the Act. That's why they are reflected on the structure. But immediately below the National Commissioner, those are the 3 at the bottom. They are the Deputy National Commissioners, which are structures established by the National Commissioner, the prerogative of the National Commissioner to create those structures. They may exist, they may not exist, depend who's the National Commissioner at the time. There's 3 currently, at times there are 5, or some other times there are 4. It depends on how the National Commissioner feels in terms of creating those structures that we see.
So if we understand you then, below the level of National Commissioner, there can be as many Deputy National Commissioners as the National Commissioner deems appropriate.
That is correct, Commissioner.
It's not prescribed to the National Commissioner as to how many there should be and what areas they should cover.
That is correct, Commissioner.
It will, perhaps while we are here, we take the opportunity, we'll deal with this further on in the statement. Insofar as the Deputy National Commissioner, the crime detection is concerned, your statement later on gives an understanding that that particular Deputy National Commissioner is actually responsible for 3 wider areas or responsibilities within SAPS. Can you just mention them, summarizing what each does, and we will make a note on this organogram.
Commissioner, the bottom right, if I can start there, of that structure is a corporate support, which is a general administrative that support the operations of the police. The policing in the main is controlled on the left, which is the middle block and the left block. Left block is mainly about the visible policing, which is uniform branch, those men and women you see patrolling the streets. They are charged with responsibility of preventing crime and interacting with communities and the likes. But the heartbeat of the justice system, where it starts in the main, is in the center, middle block. That middle block controls the heartbeat of the South African Police Service. That is where the case docket is managed. That's where the criminal investigation is managed. You will have detective services that falls under that structure. You will have crime intelligence that fall under that structure. And you will have forensic services in the South African Police Service. So all three are the ones that are controlled in that structure, in that block.
Briefly, just so we can orientate ourselves, what does the detective services deal with within SAPS, and equally the crime intelligence and, you said, forensics? If you could just give a brief description of what each function entails.
Commissioner, when the crime is committed, the first people that arrive at the crime scene, it's forensic service, who are responsible for the preservation of the crime scene and make sure that the evidence that is critical for investigation is collected. That's where you're going to find any evidence that might be used later in the investigation being fetched and be taken to the lab and get analyzed. And therefore, thereafter, the detective, which is crime investigation, will then take over the investigation, and with a further investigation that they collect to try and follow the pattern of what could have transpired that led into that crime. Any evidence that they collect, they will always share with forensic services in order to conduct analysis on it. But as they are looking for clues or the perpetrators that will have been involved in that particular crime, they are going to rely on crime intelligence, who help them to trace the suspects through their means of deployment of intelligence agencies and collecting of the information of the people that might share some information with regard to that crime. So that's what crime intelligence does, they are the only one that are mandated with the responsibility of monitoring the criminal syndicates through their cell phones and tracking their movements. They really do covert operations that at times the public is not aware of, that we might discuss later. So, but that is in the main what the three does, the forensic, the detectives, as well as intelligence.
And it's for that reason that you call them the heartbeat of policing.
Indeed, Commissioner, it is the heartbeat.
If I may call for the next one to be put up, and I do, General, perhaps accept that this slide you put up for the benefit of some of us who are not as illiterate around the structure and the ranks of the police service. So if you could just quickly highlight what is important for us to understand from that slide, would appreciate it.
Commissioner, in the South African Police Service, we are categorized into two category of members in the service, and it is those that we refer to them as non-commissioned officers. And then we have those that refer to them as commissioned officers. For the general public to understand, commissioners also to know, is that non-commissioned officers, when you see them in uniform, they would be wearing ranks that are hanging over their shoulders, not on top of their shoulders, but hanging on the side of their shoulders. They're non-commissioned officers. And that is basically the entry level into the South African Police Service, which is a first rank of a constable. That's where you enter in the service. And as you become a commissioned officer, you then put on your ranks on your shoulders, above your shoulders, those stars that we see worn by police officers. And they are in different levels, with the highest being the National Commissioner. So the entry level is a constable and the highest level is the National Commissioner. I'm talking about the National Commissioner as the title that is carried in the Constitution. However, the regulation that was amended, it then introduced the general's titles. And so therefore we call the National Commissioner a general. But it remains a National Commission in terms of the Constitution. So it's a Constitution versus the police regulation in this regard. They are both applicable to us, Commissioner.
And on the extreme right, you list what you say is a form of address. That's an acceptable form of addressing each rank of the police force, of the police service, as set out in that diagram.
Yeah, that's correct. What you see written on this structure, unfortunately, as I said, commissioners, they're right on top. It's actually the National Commissioner, which the rank given is the general. In the form of address, it's a general. And the picture you see on the screen, it just outlines the different ranks that we have and how we address them. So all those that we refer to as generals, lieutenant generals, major generals, and a general, when we address them, we call them generals. We don't use the first weight that precedes the general. And then, of course, the similar applies to the colonels. You will not call a lieutenant colonel or a colonel, we just address both of them as colonels. That's a form of address that we apply. And the non-commissioned officers are written on their shoulders as constable, sergeant, and warrant officers. So we address them as such.
Thank you. Chair, I'm moving to a next topic. I'm starting a new topic. I see the time is 11:28. Might this be an appropriate time for the tea adjournment?
Yes, let us adjourn and come back at 11:45 sharp.
We shall be back at
Thank
11:45. Thank you, Chair. Okay. So the gets a pin drop.